Monday, August 17th, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting into order. First item of business is the invocation and pledge of allegiance. We normally have someone sign up to deliver the invocation. We do not have anyone signed up this evening. I would invite anyone from the audience that's interested in saying a few words over this meeting. If you'd like to, you can please come forward and do so. If not, then maybe Commissioner Beaumont, would you like to do something for us this evening?
Sure, something different.
All rise.
Heavenly Father, I thank you for this glorious day. Lord, I thank you for your favor that has so shined upon this county. Lord, I thank you that in the midst of the mayhem that has racked so much of our country, Father, I'm grateful to live in a place like Currituck, where first and foremost we are friends and we are neighbors. Lord, I ask your blessing upon this evening, your blessing upon this meeting. Lord, I pray that you would give wisdom to the board as we consider the issues before us. Lord, that we would reflect that which, in our opinion, is in the best interest of the county. Lord, bless this evening, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Any changes or additions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to add under new business, item J, discussion of extending the lifeguard contract.
J. Thank you. Well, you want to do it as behind consent agenda or before the consent agenda? Would you like to move I, make it item I, and make item J consent agenda?
No, I want to say with J, please.
Okay. All right. There we go. All right. Do we have a second? Ms. Kitty was the loudest. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you all. First item up tonight is public comment. We have quite a few people, I think, that are going to be speaking this evening. I will remind everyone that we have a 3-minute public comment session. There are 3 lights up there. The yellow goes for, or green goes for 2 minutes, yellow for 1, and red means stop. So we'll please ask that you limit your comments this evening to the 3 minutes. First person signed up is Mr. Richard Durger. Is that you? Come on up. And if you would, sir, please state your name and address so we have it for the record.
Sure. I'm Richard Durger. I live at 130 Homestead Lane in the Countryside Estates in Moyac, where we have a flooding problem, but not unusual for Currituck, I suppose. Our retention ponds and our roads had flooded twice this past summer. My wife and I lived in Kitty Hawk for 20 years, where I was a member of the planning board, so I've seen my share of flooding and draining problems. I thought we moved inland, maybe to get away from it. I guess we didn't go far enough. When we've had a lot of water in our street. When it starts coming up your driveway, you get a little worried, especially when you don't have flood insurance. And most of the people in Countryside Estates, 62 homes in there, don't have flood insurance. It's a high ground, relatively high ground in Moyac, so we didn't think it was required. The drainage system that we have, we're piggybacked onto a drain system in the adjacent farmland. All of our runoff from Countryside is being routed to the drainage system on the adjacent farm. It doesn't seem like a very good plan to me, but it was approved by the county and by the state about 4 years ago. The county has been out, and they've inspected our system. They tell us there's some cleaning out needs to be done, but they can't do it because it's still owned by the developer. The developer's been out with his engineer. He's looked at it, but he says he needs some more time to figure out what to do. In the meantime, we're in the middle of an active hurricane system. There's a good chance we'll be flooded the third time. So what we're asking from the county here, this is really a dual ownership system, I guess. The county owns the downstream part of it. I guess that the drainage ditch on the farm is public access, I've heard, so that means the county owns it. The upstream part of the system where our retention ponds are and the drainage system is owned by the developer at the moment, soon to be turned over to the homeowners association. What we're asking you to do is get your heads together with the developer and see what can be done. So far, you know, the first flooding was in June, the second one was a couple weeks ago. Nothing's been done. You look at some areas of that system on our in countryside, it's some of the areas pretty grown over, some of the ditches grown over with vegetation. I think there's probably been some silting. I don't think anything's been done to the system since it was put in. Okay. That was 3 years ago.
So this year, just a couple questions to clarify some things. This is the first time you've really experienced any flooding. Is that
yes,
this summer?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we now have all 62 homes. We're now fully built out.
Right.
So there was no problem up until this point.
Okay. And just for a point of clarification, the county doesn't own ditches. They're on private property. They belong to whoever owns that property. We don't maintain ditches of any kind. Cities do that now. So when you're in Kill Devil Hills or Kitty Hawk, it's a different animal.
Yeah.
They come through and clean out ditches
Yeah,
and do those
right,
things before storm prep, right?
Yeah.
So we
Well,
cannot do that.
You don't own that.
No, sir.
I must have been misinformed by the developer. 'Cause
Yeah,
he
we
just
don't
told
own
me
anything.
that was a public access ditch and
Right.
would never go away. I'm not sure about that with Currituck Station going in there.
Mr. County Manager?
Just to make one point of clarification, so the ditch there is a major drainage feature. We do have ordinances that prohibit artificially blocking that ditch. That might be what the developer's referring to, but it is a private ditch. The only ditches that we maintain are the ones that are in our watershed
Homeowner
services.
districts.
So we're right now we're dependent upon that drainage system in the farm.
Right,
on the farm.
right. That's kind of systemic at this point in the Modoc areas especially. Okay. Thank you very much for your comments coming out this
Yeah.
evening. Jessica Sykes. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Sykes. I live at 193 Old Jury Road, and we bought the property about a year and a half ago. Before we moved in, we actually had surveyed, looked at the property on different days, and even after heavy rains. And, some flooding, we live in Currituck, that's natural, but progressively over this year, it's progressively getting worse and worse. And after this last storm we had last week, the water was up, it came about 30 feet out of the ditch and up to our above ground pool and was touching it. And actually, when I walked out into it, about, to my shin here. So it seems to be over the last year and a half that the problem is getting progressively worse. And so we've been, and our ditches in the neighborhood are pretty deep. We have a main ditch that is quite deep. And so what we're seeing is, with that development next to us, it seems to be like the more houses, the more our stuff is flooding. And so it's quite concerning because, we just have this in-ground pool, and our property is high. We have a pretty high property. So everything, like I said, but every single storm that comes, as time passes, is getting progressively worse and worse. And so that is a big concern because obviously, we love living here and we love our property, but we need to figure out what's going on, and we need your help with that.
Okay.
Can I ask you, are you on the south side of Jury? Are you the further south on Tulse Creek Road or on the?
We're on on the northern side. So right behind the library.
Okay.
So there's the library, then there's the big farmer's field, and then we're that next road.
No, I know we're Old Jury Road. I was curious. Are you as far as your when I'm on Old Jury Road? Are you on the south end of Tulse Creek Road?
As you drive in your.
Are you on the left or right?
Are you on the
On
left
the
or right?
left, sorry.
Okay.
Like on, you're you're talking about when I drive down Old Jury?
You're on the
On
left.
the left, yes.
Okay.
I'm right beside the halls, yes.
Be using all those navigation stuff.
I didn't. Sorry about that. I just was.
He's a
Take
cop.
it right at the vine.
Yeah.
We're on the
Third
left,
oak tree
yes.
on the. No, I'm just
We're
kidding.
on the
He's
left-hand
a-
side, so our
yeah.
property is pretty high.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
All right. Well, thank you for coming out
Thank
this
you.
evening. Appreciate it. Karen Kuhlman.
It's still in relationship to
Old Jury Road,
the Old Jury Road.
August
Of course,
the
If you need your name and address.
my name is Jamie Coolman. I'm at 172 Old Jury Road. This is an ongoing issue that we've spoke to you about before. I had 20 inches of water in my yard this time. Had 5 inches of water in my barn. The horses were in the barn at the time. When I got out there, the water was coming over like a broken levee from all the development into my yard.
just came,
It
the
was-
silk, there was no silk fence.
There was
Reached the
nothing to stop it.
berm. It was, the last time I got up here and spoke, and I had my slideshow, I showed the picture maybe 15 feet from our back door, maybe. It was at our back door. It was to the sidewalk, you open that back door. It reached our driveway, and I know we had a 3-hour rain. I know it was at least 5 inches, and it was a heavy, heavy downpour. There was not one dry spot on my property. There was, I've cried too many times. This has got to be fixed. It's not a way to live. This is our property we're talking about. This is our livelihood. This is where we live, and we can't, the grandchildren, why would we bring grandchildren there? It's too dangerous. When we flood 20 inches of rain, I mean, it's unacceptable. This way of life that is happening to us in the last year and a half, and it continues. It did slow down somewhat because there was something done back there from our last meeting, February, March, from those storms, but it's all over again. We have footage, we have the breach, we have every kind of picture and film you need to see it just pouring on our property. The whole machine shop at our barn, everything was flooding, everything but the 500-pound round bale that was sitting there. It was just, the horses were in it this deep, and that's not even the problem. The worst problem right now, it's at our back door. It is at our back door, and we don't have flood insurance either. I listened to this man speak earlier about the development where he is, and I'm like, it's only the beginning for him. We've been living it. You know what? Here's another thing. Do you know who cleans up this mess? We do. Do you know who has to clean the yard, clean the barn, and clean everything? And I just had another $800-900 worth of shell sand and dirt trucked in. It's the first dry day we had from the 6th. I don't know, was it 2-3 days ago? We have to dig our barn out. I hired somebody to come Saturday, helped us dig our stalls because they're so saturated they can't dry, to put sand in, to redo it all. But the point is, this should not be happening. I shouldn't have to do this. We shouldn't have to live this way. We need help. Something has to be done. It has to be corrected. It's unacceptable.
And we understand that the builder has met his requirements. So at this point, it's got to lay on you guys. You have to figure out what
If
we're
it's
going
a
to do.
10-year storm and he's compliant and it's still flowing over and this is the 5th, 6th time, then we need to come together and fix this for Old Jury Road.
You guys like
We've
to-
been there 21 years.
You guys can continue. I have you signed up, Jamie, as
Yeah,
well.
all
So
right.
if you have more to say, please do.
Short of, our situation.
Right. We've
Eric
talked
was
to
out
the-
there.
yeah.
Ben was out there. I actually was in the new development behind us driving around. Their level, it's nice and dry. Sure, there's water over there in the new development, but I got out and went to our back tree line, and where the silk fencing at the very end of our road where the alleys live, the berm is gone, the silk fencing is completely down, and this was the next day. Water was still going over onto their property. That is when I saw Eric and Ben, and I said, please come over, and they did, and they saw it, and they understand it, and their solution is not our solution. That's not what we're looking for, to have to.
Well, they think that if we put a 30-inch pipe in our Old Jury Road ditch, that's going to take care of the problem. I did a little bit of basic math, and 20 inches of water on 10 acres is about 720,000 gallons of water. A 30-inch pipe at 100 psi will drain that in 89 hours. That's not acceptable. We can't take that much water. We can't be the retention pond
That we've
for
become.
another neighborhood.
And you know where we sit? We're at the beginning of Old Jury, so it comes down. So we're asking for your help.
I'm not sure what we can do, but I know we've been out to look at the property, and we have the engineer here tonight, so maybe he can enlighten
But
us again.
if the flooding is endangering and it has altered our property from the flooding, why are we being held responsible to
Well,
fix it?
if memory serves, the water was sheet flowing back towards the new development behind you before. It was overflowing into that farmer's field, I believe, is what was going on. It's been a while since I've thought about this, but and if that's the case, all he's done is stop that water from coming onto his property, and I believe that's what we found was going on. Is that correct, Eric? Okay, so he hasn't necessarily done anything other than stopping the water coming onto his property,
Right,
just
and
as
I
you want the
understand that
water to
his
stop coming
compliance
onto
is-
your property.
Right, so
So
now.
now, let me just hold on 1 second. So, are you saying that a pond or something overflowed now onto your property
Yeah,
from
we
his?
have
in this
film and
past storm?
documentation. It was running like a levee broke.
That's what
Okay.
he
Right
said.
onto our property.
Now that's a different discussion, okay? Because he's supposed to retain his water. so-
Yes.
Up to a
Great.
certain level.
To a- right, to a
And then
10
there
years.
is no system that is created. This
Right.
goes back to the work session discussion that we had relative to BMPs and how much water retaining,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But you will overwhelm any system man has made, right? There reaches a
point,
point
right.
with the amount of rain that's happened that you're going to overwhelm even the retention ponds that are there. Relative to the pipe, the reason why, I'll just throw this out there, that your calculations may be off a little bit, is you're not shocking that pipe with all of a sudden pulling the dam and allowing 20 inches to hit your pipe. It's going to purge as it's raining. It's going to keep the level down. So that may, in fact, and even that can be overwhelmed depending on what the rain event is. We had, I think, 9 inches of rain in 24 hours. And that is a lot of water.
In my
And I don't care where you
calculations,
are.
Only on my 10 acres.
Right.
That didn't include the other 40 acres
Right.
that are there that are going into the
Right.
same ditch.
Right. That's yeah. Hopefully, the thought, I'm sure, is that pipe will allow that flow to come down and pass through it reasonably unimpaired until a
But-
point, and then at that point it's going to get
And
overloaded.
weren't there downstream issues as well, Eric?
Like
Have those
across the
been
road?
rectified?
No.
The downstream issues were the culverts. There's 2 culverts, I think they're
Under the
18-inch
road, right?
culverts.
Right, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so the recommendation from the county engineer was to take those to 36-inch culverts. When we went out and visited the site right after the last storm event, drove around, and there were some conversations with one of the homeowners, and they said that there's a potential to even remove one of the culverts, that access isn't even needed anymore, which would be, the most beneficial thing.
Right.
So you're saying that putting a larger culvert will move our 20 inches of water? That happened August the 6th, and I know we had rain prior to that and lots after. We're talking August the 6th. This is what happened, not since then, because we're completely saturated. We had 1 dry day, maybe 2. So now we just have to accept this, put a larger culvert in, dig it out, and our 20 inches of water that will happen every time the levee and the ponds break, and just have to wait it out and clean the barn again?
Well, I think the thought process is that a larger culvert will help not have that water stacking up.
Again, it's 1 culvert. That's,
but
again,
what's
it's
the existing
40
culvert?
Yeah, but it's our whole neighborhood
Right.
coming in.
I'm sure Eric
That's
did
coming.
yeah, but there was a lot of math involved, and again, this was just you guys are in an untenable situation. I understand that. This board
terrible.
understands that, but we can't put funds to it. We cannot do anything legally to help that.
All right.
And that's the problem. Unless you're in a stormwater district. So, all right, Michael.
starts, please, in the future, either put something on the front door or the side door that tells people to use the back door for a public building, for a public meeting. It's kind
Thank
of
you.
embarrassing when it happens continually.
Okay.
That's all I ask.
All right.
COVID.
So let's use, but put a thing, hey, let's use the back door,
Oh,
why
yeah.
use the front door? My name is Mike Hall. I live at 174 Old Jury Road. Flooding. Imagine Currituck. Boy, I remember that term. Really good. 10-year storm. Now it's a 100-year storm. Now you guys are looking at a 500-year storm. Your stakeholder meeting that's coming up, as soon as you get the information, speed, get it passed. Because right now you all are doing nothing. Not you personally, but in general the system. It's failing. It's failing tremendously. Quit building houses until you can figure out what's going on, if that's what it takes. Now let's talk about my neighborhood. I live on the left side of Old Jury Road. Let's pretend you're Guinea Road. Over here, that's a new neighborhood. When it was passed, all three of these new neighborhoods to my right were supposed to be engineered together so all the water went that way. Now, before it was built, the farmer that had it, we used to all joke about it. We took our dogs out there, we hunted, whatever it was. Water drained to the center, and the center was always wet. Or it drained to the back, past the farmer's field. Always happened. Happened for 100 years. He sold it. Now, we allowed them to come in and say that we're going to engineer all of this so the water won't go this way like it's not supposed to. It's supposed to go this way, which is what it normally has always done. 40 acres did not flood 1,000. Let's look at Guinea Road. Guinea Road is always flooded. Always. Because that's Rolling Creek. Well, now guess what? You got two developments over there, so that kind of built up the land here. The land that used to be that high is now this high, right before you get to Guinea Road. And it's got a pond there. Well, guess what? It used to all flow straight over all of that land. So guess what? The pond is a dam. And when it overflows, hey, guess what? Not one storm, 5 storms in less than a year, since September, 5. Okay, we've had flooding. It's just getting progressively worse. He's correct. Over here, let's go back to the one next to us. Now, that land is supposed to, that way, the water, that way. So guess what? It's not. It's coming this way, and it's trying to go that way. Well, it used to some go that way. Can't now because of those neighborhoods. Those got built up. Can't go this way because I don't know if the engineers have all done it right, because according to your folks, right to my face, just the other day, county manager and the engineer, they eyeballed it. So they haven't done their homework. So you don't know if it's fixed. That's the next problem. You're eyeballing it. Why isn't it, do all three neighborhoods, are they working correctly? I don't know. But it's not, 40 acres is not flooding the others. And yeah, according to the county, we're only required a 15-inch pipe. We have an 18-inch pipe. We actually have 2 18-inch pipes in each one of those ditches. That's 36 inches. We put a bigger one in. I made sure personally that I went out there and cleared any debris in front of that pipe. It doesn't flow because guess what? When it gets down to Tulse Creek Road and it has to make that left-hand turn, there is a pipe 100 yards down closer to the library that crosses onto Tulse Creek Road. That pipe is 14 inches higher than the ditch. So I got to get 14 inches of water in my ditch before I even get to use that pipe. So it'll flow across and out that way. So the problem we have here is that we've allowed land to be built up. The ponds, no, leave the land where it is. Ponds are supposed to be there. When you build land up, and we all talked about it, that land used to be lower than our side. It's not. It's now higher than our side. The ponds are there, and there's only one little area that they have, and guess what? It kind of goes right to our ditch. Well, here's what the ditch does. It goes down like this. It makes a 45. It makes a 90, and it comes back. Now, how many ditches work that well like that? And I'm talking all within 200 yards. I'll even go to 100 yards. How many ditches flow properly that way? They don't. So there's one problem. Berms are not kept in place. The silt fence is not kept in place. Okay, the silt fence isn't going to stop the water. The berm might keep it a little bit. But again, you built up land, and the pond is over here. The pond is actually lower than some of the lots, the top of the pond. And you all have only eyeballed it? Well, folks, come to stakeholder meeting, please. Get that 500-year storm passed, but tell you what, when you get shown it isn't working, stop. Because when this was passed, like everywhere else, will not harm or endanger adjoining property. When it does, the answer from your county manager sat right there. You know what he said? Not y'all's problem. I was floored. I was like, what? That's not our problem. That's all of our problems. Stop it then. Don't let it, if it isn't working, till you get this thing passed, don't let it go on. It's not working. And to say, well, hey, he failed, he didn't, we don't know if the developer over there has fixed everything, because our folks only eyeballed it. We don't know if that his pond is supposed to be draining that way. We don't know if that guy, so he can't say it's not his. Maybe it's his fault. Maybe it's the next guy's fault. And that's what happens. We're passing the buck. But all three of those neighborhoods are supposed to be engineered together. And if they didn't work, any one of the three, it got shut down. I was there. I voted for it. I'm all for, moving forward with development, but reasonable development. When policies don't work, stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
I just like just a quick comment. I mean, I've been hearing a lot of flooding issues, and I just want individuals to know it's not just in the Moyock area. It's in the south end of the county, the Grandy area, and I've got photos I've shared with a lot of people. My house, where I live, I had my whole yard was underwater. I had water up to my brick foundation. I was wading in water about that all the way around the side of my house. I don't have flood insurance, and that development was done in 2005. So it's countywide. The county has drainage problems, has from day one, still does, but it's not just the Moyock area. It's my development too. There's nothing I can do about it, and I can't expect the county to go in there and clear that out right now either. So, but I mean, we hear everybody, but it's all over the county.
The other thing too is, and I was looking at Dylan's sheet that he gave us. My rain gauge at my house, I've clocked 22.6 inches of rain since August 4th. Today is the 17th. So in 13 days, we've had 22.6 inches of rain. I Googled to see how much rainfall we've had in the month of August in Currituck County in general. It's right at 21 inches. Owen, I think, said his rain gauge was 21 inches. So we've had 20 inches of rain since the last 13 days. I mean, like I said, I've had water. I can cut my grass. I can cut my dad's grass.
That's equivalent to a hurricane.
Yeah, the day after any rain, and I haven't cut my grass because it's rained so much. And like I said, I mean, those are just two examples. Somebody in my neighborhood in Brumsey Landing, there's a 6-acre common area. Mark Dickerson, he took a picture of his backyard, and behind his backyard there was 14 inches of water. I've never seen water in the common area like that. I've lived there 10 years. He's lived there 20. So I mean, we've been taking a beating with rain.
I went up there probably about 3 weeks ago before this big heavy rain that we had. They were flooded then. So
Yeah.
yes,
There was no water on their property. We haven't had rain. August 4th was the first rain we had. Now I know they got pounded because I rode down there, but prior to 3 weeks ago, there was no rain prior to August 4th.
When they had the first rain, they flooded.
Yeah, we got 5 inches that day on the 4th. But they weren't flooded on the 3rd. I went down. I mean, I purposely went down Old Jury Road and other roads because I've looked at their properties and stuff like that, to see the rain. But prior to the 4th, and with my other business, I track the rain, the amount of rain we get. I didn't put a Z-mower, but on one property today because it was too wet. So I mean, we haven't had prior to the 4th. That was the 5. I had 5.5 inches at my house. I'm like a mini Jim Cantori, I guess, just because of my other business.
Okay. Well, we've obviously had an unbelievable amount of rain in a short period is what it boils down to. And, Old Jury Road definitely highlighted a problem. And it is, and that is, the developer comes in, builds up a piece of property so that he can meet his stormwater requirements, keep his water on site. And it, as Mike said, has changed the natural flow of water, where it was going, what it was doing. So there is a bigger discussion, I think, that needs to take place among the Board of Commissioners and our staff and figure out what that means to us from a development standpoint, because it's only getting exacerbated as we go down the road. And and it's causing harm to someone else's property. And it wasn't the developer's intent to do that in any way, shape, or form. He developed exactly how he was supposed to. There's an engineer that said this system is going to work the way it's going to work to whatever stormwater requirement we set in place. If we change it to a 500-year stormwater requirement, that obviously is going to be, changing stuff. But again, just to do that, we're probably going to have to go up in height just to get the retention pond in place. That's part of the problem, is retaining that water. You've got to build up to be able to retain that water. So I think there's a little bit of a problem in the implementation of this. And while we have Eric here tonight, Eric, if you would, come on up for a minute. And I'd just like to get you, Eric, to really kind of talk about how These systems work. So what do we do as a county? And just kind of in layman terms so everyone understands that when a developer comes in, looks at a piece of dirt, and they're going to lay out their stuff, they have to retain it, and then they have to meter how it comes out of that property, right? Is that-
Correct. Yeah, so basically they're building a retention pond on site that will hold a 10-inch rain, a 10-year storm, which is a 6-inch rain in 24 hours, and release it no faster than a 2-year storm would have been prior to development. So it's retention of 6 inches and release at a slower rate, so it doesn't flood downstream. But with these repeated rains we've been having, you're seeing the issues.
Right. And so at Old Jury Road, you guys put together a little report. You went out and looked at what the problems there are. In that particular instance, your advice was to put larger pipes in. And now, did that account for going underneath Guinea Mill Road?
No, sir.
Okay, so this was just internally, right?
Yes, we didn't actually go out and look at the development. We were kind of focused in the area of Old Jury Road. And what I did was try to see if there was a way to release that water. So it was obvious to me that the major release point was out Old Jury Road and across Tolls Creek Road.
Mm-hmm.
And you've heard the stories about releasing it that way, but there is a ditch across the back of those properties, Old Jury Road on the right-hand side. They have a ditch across the back of their property. They have ditches along their lot lines, that bring it out to Old Jury Road, and then Old Jury Road out toward Tolls Creek Road. But it's got to be all of it, really. I mean, a culvert, there is a small culvert there that's obviously going to help a lot, but is it the overall solution? I can't say that. This was an eyeball approach. I didn't do calculations. It was a site visit with elevation maps trying to get it to drain. So,
What's the, Eric, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask, and I walked the ditch line with Clay Cartwright a few months ago. What's the ditch that's on the back side of the developer's property compared to the ditch on Old Jury Road? What's the distance? I don't know if you'd say it's a berm or it's the distance between the two. What's the width of that? 9 foot, 8 foot?
the width of those.
From ditch to ditch, the berm in between them. 8 foot, 9 foot?
Well, the berm is right. There's a ditch and then there's a berm.
And then there's the Old Jury Road ditch.
Yeah, so it's not. It's all right there together.
5 feet?
Yeah.
5 or 6 feet.
Okay.
So, I mean, so they don't.
Probably not much of a berm, I'm guessing, at this point. It's not very significant.
No. Okay. So another way to.
Right.
But I mean, those ditches don't touch, correct?
No,
so
they don't touch. No.
But
But
it'd have to have 5 foot of water before it
Go ahead, Eric.
talking about how wet it's been, another example I can give you is on Thursday, they had 5 inches of rain. And on Saturday, they had a recorded 8 inches of rain just on the south end of Tolls Creek Road in that area in 3 hours.
I had 6.
An 8-inch rain in 3 hours is a 1,000-year storm event that we had on Saturday.
On top of what was already
On
there.
top of a 100-year storm event 3 days before.
On top of a 500-year storm event about a week before that.
Right.
And another thing, the tide has been as high as I've ever seen it.
Yes. And if the tide had been higher on Saturday,
It would have been terrible.
yes, because you noticed during that storm, the wind switched out of the north.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot. But
Yeah. Okay, anything further for Eric? Eric, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I know it's always a,
Makes you want to redefine a 100-year storm.
yeah. That's more like a summer occurrence here.
And
It's not a-
hence why
We're talking
I've
about
been
this.
asking, pushing for, we need to have a sit down quicker.
Because we've been having more of the.
Right. And, you know, when you say an eyeball approach, can you expand on that a little bit? Because I understand you're not running the math and the volume and the cross-sectional areas and the flow rates and all of that. I get that. But that's not just sticking your thumb in the air and giving it a guess.
I'm experienced as an engineer in stormwater in this county, so I understand as much as anybody the drainage patterns, but still, I didn't run the calculations. I didn't do a stream pet grass. I didn't size the culvert. I was based on, well, the upstream culvert is 30 inches under the DOT right of way. Let's start with that. But I would certainly recommend before they replaced it that they do hire an engineer to size that culvert for them. I mean, it wouldn't take much.
Because it may need to be a bigger culvert.
It may be.
Well, it's still going to get jammed
right.
up down the road, right? I mean, ultimately they're restricted passing underneath the road, right? The Tulse Creek Road.
Well, yeah, yes, that, yes.
Yeah. So.
That's a little more difficult.
Yeah, a little more involved.
That's difficult.
Right.
And I know that possibly it was mentioned that culvert is I forget how high he said, higher than the other culverts in the driveway, but
right.
Still, that ditch along Old Jury Road is probably 5 or 6 feet deep. So
that's pretty
still
substantial. Yeah, that's
will relieve a lot of the water.
Yeah.
I know I rode up there Friday a week ago after the big rain, the day that you two were up there, and I went up there again Saturday afternoon and yesterday. Water is flowing under Tulse Creek Road, but it's such a volume there trying to get through.
And I don't know what's downstream of Tulse Creek Road from there until it hits.
The river.
Right. Well, in typical fashion, I'm sure there's a blockage somewhere. I mean, there's enough trees.
Very
around.
possible.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. We need to move on. I don't have anyone else signed up for public comment this evening. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to anything this evening, a public comment? All right. Seeing none, I will close the public comment section and move on to commissioner reports. And so I'll kick that off tonight. One of the other subjects is Corova roads. You know, some of us commissioners have heard about it, problems up there. They flood because it's Corova, and that's just what happens. But we also have a road maintenance district in place up there to help alleviate some of those issues. And there's been some concern over the contract and it getting delayed. And it was delayed. Two things happened this year different than normally. Normally we gave the contract to do that to a provider up there, and he was closing in on the dollar amount, max dollar amount we could do without going to actually a general contractor. So the county decided to bid that out and A, keep him honest, and B, because we were so close to that number of $30,000, see who comes out. And in the end, we ended up saving roughly $5,000 through that process, which we could put to other stuff. The committee that looks at the roads up there and decides how to proceed with those in conjunction with the county engineer had some questions, and so myself, the county manager, Eric, were you there? I don't believe you. Yeah, so Eric Weatherly, our engineer, who was just up here, came over there, and they asked some questions, so it kind of delayed the implementation of that contract is what it boils down to. Once everybody was good, county manager came back, signed off on it, went to finance, and then it went over to get the notice to proceed. That work began this weekend. So we'll be watching with bated breath to see how well this new service contractor does up there, and hopefully he does a great job for us. And if not, then we will take the appropriate measures as needed if he cannot handle the work. But we have to give that time to play out. And remember, as we just talked about, we just got a tremendous amount of rain, and the same storm that came across the Moyoc traveled right across the sound, sucked up some more moisture, and dumped right on Corova. So they got a tremendous amount of rain up there. It's very flooded right now, much like we would see during a hurricane. And so please bear with us a little while longer if you live in Corova. We've had some horses escaping in Corolla, getting around the fence. We had some sagging cables over there. A big bunch of that has been repaired at this time. Hopefully those horses will not get out. We do have more to repair on the ocean side of the fence. We did a little bit over the winter. What we could. Finding contractors was a big problem. They can actually do the work to install new pilings and the steel cabling that is necessary. I've been talking with the county manager, and we are going to be moving forward with trying to get the rest of those repairs done, hopefully over the next winter when the tides are out and it's favorable to do so. So we're going to be moving forward with that, hopefully this year, and have that fixed. The northern end also needs some work up there. We are going to move forward and just keep going and getting these fences repaired. We recognize that keeping our horses safe is a big deal. They're a big part of our lives and a big part of our county's history. So we understand that and are moving forward with that and working with the Crawl Wild Horse Fund to affect those changes. I think Mike Hall mentioned it when he was up here this evening. The county will be holding a meeting with stakeholders on August 25th over at the co-op to talk about the flooding issues that are going on, our stormwater management plan, and all things therein. So we'll be talking about that some more here in the very near future. And we hear you. We understand that some of you guys are in a terrible position, and it's costing you a lot of money, and it's destroying your property. And so if nothing else, maybe we can fix this for other people going forward in time. We might not be able to address everyone's issues that are here today or affected right now, but maybe we can fix it going forward. So we do understand, and all of us have that problem. As Mr. Payment said, his house was flooded. I own a house in Poplar Ranch not far from him, and it was at the top of the ditches all the way around my house. My pond went from empty to full. It's about 5 feet deep. So overnight, it went from empty to full, and it is not fed by anything other than groundwater. So it was pretty significant to see that happen. And that's all I have for this evening. Commissioner Payment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things. Last week I had the pleasure of attending with some other fellow commissioners the beam signing for the new public safety building. That was very nice to see the progress on that, and it was fun trying to get the signatures on those beams. But I think everybody had a good time, safe time out there. But that's really exciting to see something. I know that was talked about in the 90s. That's finally starting to see that building get built, and I think, Owen, you remember having that discussion years ago too. So it's going to be fantastic, a beautiful building. And the next, again, I'm on the Albemarle Regional Health Board. I just want to give you the latest update I did receive for Currituck County as far as the COVID cases. Currituck's had 83 confirmed cases, and of those 83, only 12 are active still. 71 have recovered, and the nice statistic is Currituck County's had 0 deaths reported from it. So Currituck is doing well through this, and I just want to give everyone the latest update on that. And I think we've been doing some testing in the Corova-Corolla area, the mainland area, so there has been some testing going on throughout the county, a little here and there. So anyways, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kitty.
I'd like to welcome all the school kids back to school. It's getting ready to start. I had the pleasure this morning of listening to my little third grader get to meet her teacher for the first time on, I guess it was like a Zoom or something. So it is going to be different for everybody, but I do ask all the parents to be patient. As the teacher was telling my little granddaughter, this is new for me too. So there's been a lot of changes with the COVID. I know we had our association meeting through Zoom. So there are a lot of changes, but I ask that all the kids have a wonderful school year, and please be patient with your teachers and your parents and everybody, and make it a great school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Beaumont.
Nothing this evening, Mr.
Thank you. Mr. McCord.
First off, I guess we'd pray for less rain in the county. That'd be nice. Parks and Rec, we've got a lot of stuff on social media, and I've gotten a bunch of phone calls. With school not being in the spring, that's why they didn't have spring baseball. We have 8 different divisions between girls and boys softball, and we had just a few over 100 kids sign up. So if you have 8 divisions to fill, 12 kids per team. I mean, a lot of the divisions, they had either not a full team. I think 2 of them had 2 full teams because people are seeing the activity of the tournament, the travel teams that are now allowed to play, and they're doing stuff. So it's not that the count. We didn't get the signups because of all the stuff with COVID. COVID is, I mean, you name it, it screwed up something. I mean, not just somebody's health, but it screwed up maybe somebody getting some lumber in or somebody getting whatever it is. It's I think it's like everybody's go-to if something's wrong. You just say, oh yeah, COVID. But like I just wanted to address on that, and I did talk to the county manager yesterday because I'm the commissioner that sits on the Parks and Rec board, and we're in the process of doing like a fall baseball and different stuff like that. So it's not the county. It's just those kids. And I remember when I was a kid going to school here in Currituck too, I'd go to school and I'd get the flyer and I'd bring it home and hey, I want to play basketball. Hey, I want to play this. And, when the kids weren't in school, today was the first day of school. I was on patrol. We didn't have to work school zones because there was no buses. So no kid got left behind or dropped off at the wrong place because it's different because everything's online. So it is, like Commissioner Etheridge said, it's trying times, it's challenging. I have a sister that's taught in the county for 25 years, and she said it's double the work because you're worrying about, is this kid doing this? And there's some kids that don't have internet in this county, and I know they've done different programs. They've picked up their Chromebooks. I can't wait for the COVID stuff to slow down or be gone. Hopefully it will soon. But like I said, it's different times, and just everybody's had their different challenges with it. Either if it's not with the health or whatever, it's the doing just everything's different. So I mean, like I said, I'll be glad when it's over. That's it for me. Good luck to all the kids too online. I think it's a challenge.
And it certainly is. Commissioner Etheridge.
One thing to follow up on what Kevin and Kitty said, it's the first commissioners meeting at the start of school that I can ever remember that people were not told to be safe on the highway because of the school buses. COVID has changed the way we do things, and I think we're going to see changes continue. I don't think we're going to ever get back to where we were 8 months ago. I think it'll be a different society that we live in because of this. I just hope that each of us will remember that we are friends and neighbors. COVID can't divide us, because if it does, we're going to lose our country. And just pray for our country and ask God to try to continue to bless us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jarvis.
And I'll just kind of touch on what a lot of the other commissioners have said. I think this world of virtual meetings and virtual classrooms is a challenge for everybody. It's a challenge for teachers. Many of my former colleagues have reached out to me. They're stressed out. They're nervous. Parents have talked to me. They're stressed out. They're nervous. Students are stressed out. I think having grace during this time is the best that we can hope for, and I would hope that everybody extends that graciousness to the other, whether it's a parent to teacher, a teacher to a student, or et cetera. I did attend some of the Zoom meetings for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. One was on the the county attainment profiles. I think that some of those things are going to be hard to improve on, engage in this age of virtual learning. And I think you're right, Commissioner Etheridge. I think it's going to change how we do a lot of things, education included. And I'll just say I did enjoy the beam signing at the COA building and the public safety building. Tomorrow night I will be sworn in as the member of the Board of Trustees, and I thank you for that opportunity, and I look forward to it. I attended all 3 committee meetings via Zoom. I'm not sure which committee I'll be assigned to, but a lot of detailed information. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. All right. Next up on the agenda this evening is the County Manager's Report. Mr. Steichleather.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to start off by touching base on something that Commissioner McCord was talking about. That's Parks and Recreation. We have to take signups before we're able to make decisions about what's going to happen with leagues. So I wanted to go over the changes that are going to happen for the fall, but what we're adding and the programming that we're going to add to take the place of the things that we have to cancel. Under the governor's order, there's certain sports that are impossible to play and meet that executive order. That would be tackle football, fall volleyball, and fall soccer. So we're going to have to cancel those programs. However, we understand that parents and parents need children to have an outlet, a social outlet, an energy outlet, if nothing else sometimes, especially with school happening in the home. So we are going to do some other things that are a little outside of the norm. We are going to have a fall baseball, softball, t-ball season. The governor's order has allowed for that sport to take place if you structure it properly. It'll be a little different as far as the way that children interact with each other in the dugout, and as far as the way that children interact in general on the field. But as Commissioner McCord alluded to, we've found a work through for that. You've seen some of the tournaments out there. So registration actually should be open today. It should close on September the 7th. And practices will begin on September 14th, and games will begin on October 5th. We are going to offer flag football and cheerleading. The flag football is going to be very different than what we're used to. And I'm not going to get too far into the rules because I will get somebody at Parks and Rec in trouble when I say the wrong thing. But it will be a pass-only league. So that means there is no offensive or defensive line. It's basically 5-on-5. You throw the ball, and you catch the ball, you're down at that spot. But that will registration for that and cheerleading will open on September 14th. It'll close on October 12th. And we anticipate practices to be in late October, and games would run in early November through early December. So, and then finally, while we did have to cancel soccer season and the games, trying to keep as many kids engaged as possible, we are going to offer basically like skills clinics or camps. So if your child is interested in soccer, while we can't facilitate games for them right now, we can help keep those skills sharp, and so that as we start to reopen, we can do some new things there. And as games are ready, your children are ready to come back to play. Don't have the dates on that yet. We're trying to get that set up. For those parents who are listening, or for those folks who have parents who may be listening, maybe you've got family members, if you've registered, we will give you a refund if you don't want to participate in any of these. However, your fee can be used as a credit towards one of these other activities. So that's kind of a run-through of how we're going to have to make changes to the fall Parks and Rec season.
And they'll still have the spring soccer, hopefully.
Hopefully. I mean, we're going to take registrations like we'll have it. Now, obviously, the next thing that we'll have to make decisions on is the winter sports, so basketball, those indoor sports. I mean, we'll probably have to make a decision sometime around the 1st of November. Once again, it's all kind of geared around where we're at and the executive order and what can and can't be done. I really want to commend our Parks and Rec staff, though, for doing everything they can to try to make this happen for the kids. I mean, they hate to see the facility, for the kids not to have an opportunity to participate in these things as well. It is even more of a challenge for us because, as you know, the North Carolina High School Sports Association has pushed their seasons back, and so with that, it does limit some of the facilities that we have access to, but we do appreciate all the partnerships that we have. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else, Chairman, but I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns that the board might have.
Any questions, comments, concerns? All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next up on the agenda this item is administrative reports. Item A, Interfaith Community Outreach. Jennifer Albanese, did I get that right? Okay. The executive director will be presenting. If you just want to hang on 1 second for us, we've got a couple people shuffling out.
I've got it, so I need to run through it.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, so you just tell me when you're ready to go.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I see it right in front of me. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Jennifer Albanese, Executive Director of Interfaith, and Kelly Harmon's a board member and a resident Currituck County, so she's joining me today.
And I'm just coming to give you guys a lowdown of what happened for 2019-20 fiscal year, and to thank you guys for the support that you give to Interfaith Community Outreach. What do we got up there? We've got our mission and our vision statements. Nothing's really changed with that. We help people facing temporary emergency crisis. We serve Dare and Currituck. Our office is in Dare County. We used to have an office in Currituck County at Mount Zion. We closed the office because it just, we needed our own space. So right now my board of directors is trying to figure out sustainability of opening an office in Currituck County and what that looks like. And that's where we'll ask all of the commissioners here and the county itself of what you all would like to see. Mission and vision statement. We don't like anyone to face emergency crisis alone. We're all in this together. All right. 2019 to 20 was an extremely busy year because of COVID, which everybody would like COVID to be gone, and because of Hurricane Dorian. So out of the 459,000, 106,000 went to Currituck County, about 150,000 went to COVID, and about 125 went to Hurricane Dorian. The rest was regular outreach. We normally spend about 290 to 300,000 in outreach for both counties, but as you see, it was much bigger because of different circumstances, hurricane and COVID. So this is a breakdown of Currituck County of what we did in outreach. I did it by category so you can see. Rent being one of the largest, electricity being one of the largest, energy share, that's also electricity. We hold the energy share funds for Currituck County. So about 47,000 just in power bills. Cancer outreach, we serve both counties with cancer, which is awesome. To give that outlook. For cancer clients, we do a grant, and the grants are worth $2,000 per resident, and then we do transportation reimbursement. So every trip they take to Duke, Chapel Hill, the Outer Banks, Virginia, they get a stipend for that. Can help them with their car insurance, car payments, gas to get to and from. That money runs forever. So if you're getting treatment for 2 years, you can get that for 2 years. The grant, however, is only $2,000. And we ask the residents, where would you like to see that money go? Do you need your mortgage paid, your rent paid? So they get to pick where it hits them in their budget the best. In the burial expenses, we do not pay for services, but when there's an unclaimed body, we do pay for a cremation. So that's where it's got burial expenses. It's really cremations for some of the residents who have died and had nobody to bury them. All right, and let's see. So since COVID hit, we have given over $22,000 in outreach to Currituck County residents. That's everything mostly for rent and electricity. Even though there is a moratorium during it where you couldn't be evicted, you're going to get evicted at some point. You have to pay your rent or your mortgage. So we didn't stop paying people's rent. We did stop paying electricity to a point. We paid the past due. We didn't pay the new amounts, which we now opened up and we are paying. So the floodgates are kind of opened up. We have received a lot of grants for COVID, and some of them for Currituck County, some of them are not. Some grants that I get are for both counties, so it really depends on what it's for. All of our donations come in for Currituck County for your annual support, churches, businesses, individuals, civic organizations, and fundraisers. All of our fundraisers, like every other nonprofit, have been canceled, so there is a shortfall in budgets, and we're not the only one, so there won't be any fundraisers until next year. Sustainability, so we are just, Currituck County never really supports itself truly. There's always a lack in the funding from what we spend and what comes in. So Dare County, all of the money is one pot of money for both organizations. But we would like to see how we can come up with some more funding for Currituck County residents. The program's growing bigger and bigger every single year with more and more residents that need assistance. So we'd like to, talk to you guys maybe on a different meeting time with collaboration of what you all like to see, what we actually do in the county, what impact we make. We partner with your social services department on every case. They send referrals over to us, people that are cannot qualify, they're over income, but they're right on the cusp. People that need anything from childcare, electricity, mortgage, rent, cars donated, car payments. So we come in and fill the gap.
There is a seat on our board.
Oh, say it again?
There's a seat on our board for someone from their Department of Health and Human Services.
Yes. That's all. Okay. Who are you referring to? Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Kelly and I were whispering. We used to have somebody from social services sit on our board, and her term expired, so we will have a vacancy come 2021. And we always like to have somebody from Currituck County sit on the seat. So we will be reaching out to see if somebody would like to sit on our board again. We have a board member of 15. We run on volunteers. There's a staff of 2, myself and Jean Freeman, who does the regular outreach. And that is it. So we have a very low administration budget, about 100 volunteers that give daily outreach. And so it's a pretty amazing organization that's supported by both counties. So just wanted to give you guys a big thank you. You've been supporting us since we opened the office in Currituck County, or started giving outreach to Currituck County in 2009, I believe the year was. And just ask if there's any COVID money in your budget to look at interfaith community outreach. We'd like to see about requesting any, if the county has received any additional funding for that. And that's about it. I can answer any questions.
So how do you, I know you said you use social services as a way to find people that maybe need some help. Do you go through churches and things of that nature? How do you?
We do. We're funded by 48 churches, so from Moyock all the way to Hatteras.
Okay.
So we have relationships with all the churches. Some give us donations annually, some give us monthly, some give us volunteers, so it really just depends. Some do fundraisers for us. So the churches may send over an application. Our application is online on our website, interfaithoutreach.com. The residents do not have to drive from Moyock. From as far as even right over the bridge, they don't have to drive. We can take an application online. We can call their employers if they are working, if they're not working. If somebody comes into Interfaith, they have to show how they're going to pay their bills next month. It's not a handout. We're not here to enable anybody. We're not social services. We're here to help people. So these people that need help truly are coming in that need assistance, and so social services might be one of our referrals, a church might be one, a business might be one of their employees. So our referrals come from all different places. Okay. Schools, one. When you talk about the internet where some of the kids don't have Wi-Fi in the house, well, that just needs to be a phone call to us, and Interfaith would pay for that because it is for the children getting an education. We're not paying for cable. We don't pay for cable for somebody to run a cable and watch television that way. We would pay for internet.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Comments? Thank you very much for coming out. We appreciate your time. Okay. At this time, we're going to take a little recess so we can switch gears on who's in the audience and bring some people in for our next item, which is going to be a public hearing. So we'll be back in 5 to 10. All right, good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting back into order. And
It's nice.
Buddy's phone. If you don't know by now, please cut your phone off. Next item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing. Item A, PB 20-11, Stephen W. Craddock, request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 4, Use Standards to modify the extractive industry, otherwise known as mining, an accessory use industry from the heavy industrial and light industrial standards for minor excavations and ponds. The proposed amendment removes extractive industry from the heavy industrial and light industrial zoning districts. Full service and limited service land use designation modifies the lot and access requirements and the expansion and extension requirements. The proposed amendment requires excavation accessory uses of ponds less than 1 acre to use the excavated materials on the subject property. And we have Ms. Volva here this evening to help us through this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One point of clarification, the agenda summary sheet that's on page 6 of your agenda packet has been modified to reflect the changes. That was carryover language from the initial application that Mr. Stephen Craddock submitted. The initial application that was presented really impacted more sections of the ordinance, and after staff reviewed that language, we determined that it would basically make all mining operations in the county, mining operations would be those operations greater than 1 acre, would make them all non-conforming. So Mr. Currituck did amend his request. That was done right before the planning board meeting. And his request now really affects two types of excavation. One is the extractive industry. That's your typical mining operation involving more than 1 acre. And the minor excavations. Those are ponds that generally affect 1 acre or less. That initial application that Mr. Currituck submitted is found in your agenda packet. It is on page 25 if you'd like to review that. Again, it involved eliminating the extractive industry use from several of the zoning districts that it's currently allowed in, as well as placing restrictions on certain land use classifications, properties that contain certain land use classifications. We have been working with Mr. Currituck since May to reduce the impacts on those existing mining operations. Although it did not eliminate all those impacts, it reduced it down, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into his request. The new language and the revised language can be found on page 10. It is in ordinance format, and it is the language before you tonight is the language that was presented to the planning board that they made their recommendation on. The amendment related to the extractive industry, that's the mine operations, those that are greater than 1 acre, involves all new applications for operations or expansions, and it would require that all of those access a major arterial street. A major arterial street would include 168, 158, 615, 34, and 136. It also would require that haul roads include a 200-foot continuous pavement from the major arterial street into the property. That access would either have to be direct access or access from an easement or private right-of-way that connects up to the major arterial street. Current language in the ordinance does not restrict the placement of that access road. It can be on secondary roads, it can be on a private right-of-way, it can be on a major arterial. It does require that continuous pavement for operations that generate 5 trips per peak hour. So this proposed modification would be a requirement for all new mining operations. It also requires an access impact report to be provided by a design professional, someone who has some background in transportation, to apply any type of impacts that would arise on an easement or private right-of-way. It would identify those impacts generated from heavy equipment or heavy trucks, and what mitigation efforts would be proposed to offset those impacts. The language also proposes that mine expansions be approved by the Board of Commissioners. Since the extractive industry does require a use permit, that is a quasi-judicial decision before the board. That change, typically you'd see any amendment to a use permit come before the board. However, current language does allow for administrative approval for expansions up to 40%, and that's in the current ordinance. It does require any expansion up to 50% to come back before the board for action. And along with this request, it requires any expiration or extension of a permit to file that applicant would file a new application. Right now, request can be done administratively as long as it's consistent with the state mining permit. What you have before you is a list of the mine inventory prepared by the state. It identifies 14 active mine operations, 2 inactive mine operation. The proposed language, if adopted, would impact 6 of those that access a secondary road either directly or by an easement. The mine operation would then be considered non-conforming, and it would affect their ability to request an expansion, or if that particular permit has an expiration, it could affect that as well. There are 3 mine sites that are currently non-conforming. That's due to zoning. That is an easier fix that if they wanted to expand, or if they needed to, if they were coming up on an expiration of their permit and they needed to ask for that permit to be extended, they could in fact come before the board and request a rezoning to fix that issue. I'll leave that up for just a minute in case you have any questions regarding any of these existing operations.
Like Elbow Road Farms, it's in ag, and it's non-conforming now currently, or the text amendment would cause it to become non-conforming?
The text amendment would cause it to become non-conforming because it accesses a secondary road.
Okay, got it. Now, these roads that they're currently going on are DOT maintained roads.
Some of these are DOT maintained roads. Any of those that are listed as secondary are DOT roads.
Okay.
Current language does allow someone to use a private right-of-way, and since the use permit comes before you, you have the ability to evaluate those private rights-of-way and easements through that use permit process.
Okay.
The second part of this request involves that second excavation activity. And this is one that's typically associated with accessory uses, and that's a pond, those that are 1 acre or less. The proposed language would require all excavation material to remain on the property in order for it to be considered an accessory use. Any applicant that wanted to remove any portion of that material would be subject to a use permit. So they would be treated just like a mining operation. It appears, based on our permit data that we have, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 14 active accessory use ponds. You typically see those with someone who might need fill material for septic system or building pad. They'll dig a pond on their property, use the material. Sometimes there's excess material, and they contract with a contractor and have that material hauled off in exchange for digging the pond. If that were to occur, it would require, based on this language, it would require a use permit. Any permitted operations, anything that has already received a permit, could remain and continue to operate. But any new applications, if this were adopted, would be subject to the amended language that would be in effect at the time of application.
How do you feel about that? Does this make sense to because that's a lot of work on you guys if just someone wants to dig a pond for whatever reason, not have the dirt on their property?
It is a use permit, so obviously that requires a lot more activity and work on our part as well as your part too. Can be more expensive. Part of the concerns that we have, and this is something that was brought up at the planning board meeting by the applicant, and we see this a lot. We do get many complaints on 1 acre operations if the material's hauled off site, because you can have impacts. Adjacent property owners, because you're going to have truck traffic just like you would have in any other mining operation. Although it might be shorter duration of time, These 1 acre mines generally don't have a prescribed expiration date. So they can dig, and if they need a little bit more, dig some more. As long as they stay within their permit, it's allowed to continue to operate. So I can see where those concerns on an adjacent property owner are legitimate. I can see if you were to require a use permit for those, that and require them to meet all of the standards for a greater than 1 acre mine, that could be some added issues. And matter of fact, the planning board did discuss that at great lengths, and came up with some modified language. And I think the modified language is probably a good solution to that, because and I'll go ahead and jump in and talk about that, but one of their concerns was the continuous pavement, the 200 foot of continuous pavement. And if you had a 1 acre or less than 1 acre mine, and they were hauling off, I don't know, 20 truckloads, then they would have had to have put in the 200 foot continuous pavement associated with that activity. That's an added cost that it may not totally be necessary in all applications. And it also places an improvement on that property in an area where they may not even want it or need it.
And impervious material.
And impervious material.
And the other thing that comes to mind is, we had a discussion a month ago about fire ponds, and there are areas in this county that the way the fire code is written, they're going to have to dig a fire pond because they're not going to have the ISO benefit of water shuttle. And you may not be able to use all the material on the site that houses the pond, or the pond may actually be on multiple lots. There's some challenges. Yeah.
So although we do understand the secondary impacts that you see with these 1 acre mine operations where you're actually hauling material off-site, if you were to apply all of the standards, it too could have some unintended consequences as well. One of the things that the planning board did is going through their discussion, and they did recommend approval of the request, but they did make some changes. And what they did is, with the minor excavations, those ponds that are 1 acre or less, they allowed for any woody debris to be removed. And they added language that clarified the purpose and intent of a minor excavation. And what they said was, the primary purpose of a minor excavation is for the material to be used on site, but it doesn't mean that you could not remove some material. You're intending to either fill for a house pad, fill for septic area, or maybe even some other decorative feature on your property. But it would allow for some minor removal as well. But not an operation that was intended in its entirety to be a mine. And they added some language that they would keep the access road free of any dust or sediment, because that's also a complaint that we receive on a regular basis.
But isn't that already, that's an EPA, that is governed by the EPA in emissions?
We can't enforce it on our end, but
EPA can.
yeah. And I believe DOT, when you get into those larger operations, DOT can
Well,
manage that
any
as well.
size operation that creates excessive smoke or dust or whatever, any size of that is investigatable by the EPA.
Yeah. So, that, like I said, one of those complaints we receive is sediment that ends up on the road, and then when it rains, it causes a mess. So, although the proposed language does in fact address some of these secondary impacts that some of the operations is it also addresses some complaints that we've received, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't address all of these concerns that existing operations or existing operators have. Mining operations that are greater than an acre also generate complaints as well. We receive those, and that's typical with roadway damage. You can't always determine what caused that, but we periodically receive complaints for roadway damage, which we can't do anything about. Sediment on the road, increased traffic, even some additional noise and dust. And those are generally on secondary roads. So it does address those concerns. It also, and this is one thing that, and we just touched on that briefly, what this amendment does do is it also removes that administrative review function, which should come back to the board for any type of action. So that we also support. Because use permits are quasi-judicial, we should not be doing any administrative expansion or any administrative extension of those permits without the board approval.
Donna, hold on one second. Ben, how do you as the county manager feel about that? So we've given a minor permit. They're allowed to expand up to 40% as long as they meet whatever conditions. How do you feel about that? I mean, this is your staff, you're asking you to do that, but one of the conditions is that's an allowed thing to happen, right, as part of that permit process?
It's legal, but, typically when you see a use permit come in, it's got a pretty heavy evidentiary challenge it has to face. You're talking about attorneys and appraisers and surveyors potentially, and they're all coming in. Now, staff's going to make a determination to increase that use without any of that evidence. So there's some concern on my part, but we've been doing it for a while, so we haven't run into any major issues. The one thing I will say is the way it's phrased, there are a lot of things in the current ordinance that for you to even qualify to get that administrative increase, there's a lot of boxes you do have to check already. Mm-hmm. But no, I agree with staff. You're asking staff to make a determination that's come in front of an elected body that the citizens have voted on. You've heard a bunch of evidence to grant the use permit, and gosh, the expansion might not come for 8, 9, 10 years sometimes, and you could be dealing with a whole different world at that point. Some of these things, especially in areas of the county where they're located right now, 10 years you could have major development sitting around these things, and to say that staff's going to have the ability to expand them by 40% does give me some pause.
Should have put that neighborhood next to mine.
What is the state's allowance on coverage now? How much for an acre can you mine?
I think you can go up to the setback, prescribed setback that's allowed under the permit.
Is it 50 feet or something, 50 or 100 feet?
It's maybe one of the mine, it's 50 to 100 feet. 50 foot unbuffered.
There you go. Right.
So why are we more restrictive than the state?
So back some time ago, the 100-foot, 300-foot setback was put in place so that you could get and the 30% maximum excavation area with the ability to go up to 50% was put in there so that you could still have usable land, leftover taxable usable land that you could still develop. You could mine, and you could still develop either with some type of development on the property.
Owen, think back. Have we ever denied an expansion of a mine that met all the requirements?
Not that I'm aware of. I would like to see us, if we were to do something like this, let them apply for 50% up front, and that's what they get to mine, if there's no violations in place when it comes time for expansion. If they've operated 5, 6, 7, 8 years and not had a violation, why should they have to jump through all the hoops again? They're obviously doing what's right.
We've had some mines that were in violation.
Well, that's why you put a number in there.
Right.
I mean, I can attest. I ride by. I mean, I can tell you where each one of them is in the county. The 14 of them, through the sheriff's department and through highway patrol, we don't receive many, if any, complaints on the. I mean, I know a couple times where there's been some mishaps. Somebody's cleaned up, done whatever they had to take within minutes. So I don't think we've had a lot of complaints on that end of it. County manager.
Yes, sir.
Just for a point of clarification, because the way that the conversation is kind of going, this isn't a staff-initiated amendment.
I know.
So there's an applicant who's going to give a presentation after this. So any questions that you all have about the text in this probably should be presented to the applicant, because
And for my part, I want to know since it's not staff initiated, what are their concerns, the positives and negatives, okay? And that's why we're having this discussion.
Let me say one thing. I was on the board when we wrote the 1 acre mining permits. And the reason we made the county come into compliance with the state was we were getting a proliferation of small 1 to 5 acre mines, and we were trying to get a handle on it. We put the 1 acre in because we felt like that would be for like farmers that needed sand to fill paths with, or if a homeowner did want to build a building pad or something like that. It was never designed to allow for commercialization of those 1 acre or smaller pits.
1 acre is the state standard. Once you hit 1 acre excavation and disturbance, then it triggers your permit. Anything less than that, it was county driven.
Okay.
So, although there are some good points in this proposed text amendment, we do still have concerns. Since the planning board meeting, I've received numerous phone calls from mine operators expressing that either the board deny this request or not take any action on it. And given those conflicts that we've received from the mine operators, we'd ask that the board table this request. If it is as presented, and it would allow the applicant time to work with these mine operators to help address those concerns and maybe come back forward with a modification to the language. I am prepared that in the event that they can resolve that tonight, I don't know if the applicant has met with the mine operators and is wanting to make any changes to his request. We are prepared to give a recommendation if it addresses those conflicts. But as of right now, as it's written, we would ask that the board table this request until such time as they address the concerns, which I'm sure you'll hear from tonight.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any further questions for the staff at this moment? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Currituck, if you'd like to come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Stephen Currituck, 102 Hickory Hill Drive in Grandy.
Before you jump in, well, I just have one question. So normally these things come up because something's happened. Island Development comes to mind. He saw something that wanted to fix. So how you don't have a mine, you don't actively run a mine. You're an appraiser, right?
Yes, sir.
So how did we get to this point that you're proposing these changes?
As many of you know who are sitting on the board, I have served the county in many aspects. One aspect was working on the planning board for 6 years, and I'm currently on the Board of Adjustment for the county. Also served on the Land Use Plan Steering Committee for 3 years. So I'm highly in tune with what's happening in the county. And for that reason, and many of you all have seen as well during your tenure here on the board, that you have found items many times within our UDO that are problematic, and you probably want to fix them. That's exactly the reason that I'm here before you tonight, trying to crack down on some of the violators that have been abusing some of the UDO portions. And that's really the gist of why I'm here tonight.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I just want to know where this is coming from, so I appreciate that.
Just to start out with, I wanted to thank staff for all the hard work they've done. Like Donna said, been working with her since May, so we've been going back and forth. Initially, the request at the beginning was heavily negative towards the current state permitted mining operations, and because of that, I went back and modified this. It's been now 5 times over since May, and for that reason, I agree with Donna that it may be a good idea to table this tonight before the public hearing. Since the meeting was postponed 2 weeks ago because of the hurricane possible effects, since that time I've had time to speak to a few of the mining operators, and many of them have conveyed it to me that if they were able to be exempt from these new rules, that would take much of the burden off of them, and it would cause all of these 16 that you see on that list, they all would not be non-conforming if that happened. And for that reason, I agree with Donna that if you would like to table that until we can work out the language through the planning department to get the language a little bit better, get it more specific, and find out how we can work it out so the existing mining operations aren't negatively affected by making them exempt. And then it would only be for new operations that would come to you in the future. And I'm all for tabling it tonight before a public hearing if you'd like to do that.
Yes, sir.
Does that include a meeting with the mine operators?
Yes, I've spoken with some of them already. I'll be glad to give any of them my contact information tonight. We can set up phone meetings or in-person meeting, whatever they prefer. Do them all simultaneously or independently. It doesn't matter to me, whatever way. I'm willing to work with them. And like I say, I don't have any enemies that I know of. I don't have it out for mining operators or people that have the land that are having mining operations on them. I don't have a negative thing against it. But there are concerns that if left unchecked, we're going to have definite problems for residents in neighborhoods that are near them, and they're already experiencing that. And I just want to make it right.
Okay. Well, then, in light of that, if there's interest from the board, then I would suggest that we
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move we table this and allow them time to work with the staff and the mining operators and come up with something that hopefully everybody can buy in on.
do need to set a date, time specific, because it's open right now, so we'll leave the agenda item open, but
First meeting of October.
first meeting in October would be
We
the 5th?
have
Does that sound right? Monday, October 5th?
5th or
Okay.
the
Are we
19th.
able to do it in September perhaps? So there's not such a lag in the time here if staff believes they have enough time to work on that.
Well, it might be you and them. So your time with the operators, then prepping the language and changing it, passing it, let them look at it.
One point of clarification that I'd like to make, and no disrespect, Mr. Craddock, that the responsibility to get this language right falls on the applicant in this case, not on staff. I mean, staff is happy to assist some, but the language would have to come from meetings that Mr. Craddock has with the industry, not that the planning department has with the industry.
Well,
so
yeah.
it's really a matter of how fast Mr.
That
Craddock
was the
feels like
question I
he
was
can
going
do
to
it.
ask is how much time does he feel the applicant would need then to get with all the operations out there, not staff?
I'd like to make
Yeah,
a clarification on the point that the county manager brought up is that, in fact, the reality of it is all these iterations that we've had of this particular text amendment, that language has come, the majority from me, and I have worked with staff. They've come along, and it's like I'm not putting the burden on staff. I understand they're already hard working now. They're here, many of them are here tonight already, and they've already worked a full day.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand 100% about what their commitment is, and I don't want to burden them with anything. But if I had at least a month, I believe that would be an adequate amount of time to work on that.
Okay, so that would be the 21st then.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
September 21st.
Okay. So you're going to be amending your motion to bring this forward again at the September 21st.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
So
Yes, sir.
I would request the period of comment before we second and vote.
Okay. Discussion.
Okay, so I can understand why if I had a mine, right, that I'd want to be grandfathered in, clearly. Business that's been in operation, went through the procedures, policies, et cetera. Also understand why not having competition is a good thing, too. I see, there's a lot of regulations, there's a lot of controls that I think are in place already, and DOT enforces dust on the road, dirt on the road. I mean, I've had to call them a couple times, locally because of that exact thing. While I respect Commissioner Etheridge's, desire to try and get all this done, that's why we hold stakeholder meetings before we all get to this point. If the mining operators haven't been consulted or worked with, I think we should push and hear the case. I mean, we can decide afterwards whether or not we want to table it or not, but
Once I open that public portion of it, it's kind of done. If we
okay,
right.
well,
Procedurally, I believe, is that correct? Right. Well, if I open up public comment,
you don't close it.
I wouldn't close it, but we would need to get back into discussion about terms and.
Well, if you open the public comment, this is a legislative matter, so you could continue the public hearing to a later date, time, and place, even after you've already started into it. You could conclude it, at which time you could then entertain a motion on the text itself, or you could defer consideration at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You could, again, it's legislative, you could reopen the public hearing. You would want to, of course, properly advertise it if you were going to do that, and take additional comment.
So, to your point,
Mr. Chairman, excuse me.
Yes.
I'd be willing to pay any fees associated with re-advertising it if,
I don't think
to take that off the county's back.
Right. I don't think we'll get to that point, but so if Mr. Craddock can get together with the stakeholders and get this language crafted and not have to have them, all 25 of them that signed up, come up here tonight, this agenda item could get cleaned up a lot better, and we could go through this much easier next time around, especially if they're all okay with it, I guess. So just that's consideration for the board. If we can save everybody that headache of having to sit through an hour and a half of talking to people this evening and get back to this item again when it's a little more well-crafted, I would think that would be a better move.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
I think as long as the stakeholders are consulted and have input and feel like they have been heard, since we're not going to hear them tonight and they all showed up, as long as they feel like they are going to be heard.
Right. Well, and that in no way, if this comes back up again and any of them still aren't happy with this, of course you can always voice your opinion at these things. This is not in any way shutting them out, but more to the point, engaging them and involving them in this process. And if maybe they come back and support this, who knows? I don't know whether these people were for or against, but generally people come out against. They don't come out for. So, so that's where we are. Thoughts?
But no, I mean, we'll continue this and then we speak, and then we go through this, and then it gets continued, and then they have to come out again if we want to. Right. Or we just.
Well, the problem with doing that is if the language changes drastically,
We have to re-advertise it.
you're going to have to re-advertise it, and they'll have to be back up here again. So why not do it all in one motion?
Right. Might as well. Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor of continuing to the 21st of September?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
One nay. All right. Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Craddock, we will see you back here in a month.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully with some cleaned up language.
I'll be glad to see anyone out here and get your contact information.
All right. So we'll take a quick break and let everybody clear out and go talk with Mr. Craddock and move on to the next agenda item. A, it's an action item, PB 19-24, New Bridge Creek Estates, request for a preliminary plat use permit for 37 lot conservation subdivision located off Currituck Highway in the Millioc Township. Couple housekeeping things on this before we get into it. I received an email last week after I had viewed the previous meeting. I was not at that prior meeting and had to watch the tape of the meeting. And one of the residents out there had sent me an email, and after I got into it and started figuring out what it was pictures of the property, the subject property, while it was raining, and it was a deluge. So for me personally, it doesn't affect my decision. I'd already made up my mind at that point based on the evidence that was presented in front of us. But I needed to make that qualification, and I guess I should ask the county attorney if that disqualifies me in any way from this decision this evening.
I don't think it disqualifies you, given the statement you just made, but you should certainly not consider that email or any photographs that may have been sent to you in making a critical finding of fact with regard to this matter.
Okay, thank you. And that is the case. I had reached a conclusion based on watching the prior meeting.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
If we do we, as far as the process on this, and I know we've had to do this before, do we re-vote?
So yes, we're gonna. We can't consider any new evidence. Nothing can be brought forward. The public comments closed. All that stuff. So this time it's board discussion. We can discuss conditions with the applicant.
You may ask the applicant questions. That should be questions based solely on the evidence that was presented during the course of the hearing. And you may also ask for the applicant's comments on any proposed conditions. But there can be no additional evidence presented to you.
Can I ask the county attorney another question then? We are sitting as a jury.
You're sitting as a judge.
No, judge, excuse me, judge, but when we make our decisions, then we have to make our decisions on evidence presented for and against. No hearsay or no what we think or anything, but actual evidence that was brought before us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question too? Since the previous, I had a situation where we had to go out there. I didn't go out there in my personal capacity, but I had to, something happen at the sheriff's department, and the EMS was there, and I had to drive down and turn around. And when I went and turned down back in there I did. Does that cause any grief after we had gotten the rain? If I didn't get out of the vehicle, but I'm.
No, a member of a quasi-judicial body may go to view a site.
Right.
Okay.
That is
I did that. I wanted to disclose that I did that. I didn't do it on purpose, but I had to go and turn around, and I just.
Right. You just can't talk about what you saw there, basically. Is
Well,
that correct? That would be considered new information for us.
Yeah, I don't think there should be any additional statements made that the board would consider in making its decision, other than that which was presented during the course of the hearing at the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, this is the first one for me, all of us, I guess, but certainly me as the chairman. Questions, comments, or concerns that may come up from the board for the.
Mr. Chairman, and that I would bring up is that there's 4 elements of approval that are necessary to be met during the course of evidence that's presented. And the applicant did have legal representation and did bring forth, I believe he was an engineer, as his expert witness as to the property and the development and flooding and mitigation steps for that. I did not hear a qualified expert speak as to the impact on the value draining or abutting lands and will be permanently in the area in which it's located. So it is incumbent upon the applicant to provide expert witness, which would almost certainly be a real estate professional, if not a real estate appraiser, to offer that testimony. And I did not hear where that testimony was actually provided.
Okay.
And I would like to just get a clarification from staff again, if I could. I believe when Donna was speaking, I guess sworn in, if I'm correct, you did make the statement that, and if it's not correct, please correct me, but that you did not know of any flooding in that proposed area. You did say there was flooding near believe the creek side of it, but nothing that you have seen. You made some statement about that.
Elevations of the land, closer to the creek,
Right.
we have seen when there was a farm field and it was open field, we have seen where storm events have caused water to come up into that field, not cover the entire property, but come up into that field, and it was in the area of some of the lots.
Okay. Thank you. That's what
I believe the applicant, Mr. Olds, he'd asked me something about changing maybe some of the conditions. So at this time, I'd invite you up, sir, if you'd like to talk about any proposed changes to the conditions you may have.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time. What I would propose that we do change the one condition. This was the stormwater was a 10-year plan. I would request that we do a 100-year stormwater assessment plan. Obviously, I have liability in this situation, and I want to make sure it's right.
Can we say something? Well, I remember we talked about the buffer, which he agreed that the county attorney can.
If that is a condition that you are considering placing on the permit, you may ask the applicant, Mr. Old, about his position regarding such a condition.
And that would be fine. We plan on that anyway.
And we had already discussed what type and all that. I can't remember what it was, but I do remember that night I looked it up. Yeah, the buffer, which I believe Commissioner Etheridge, didn't he put that in there last time?
Yeah. Type B, I think, wasn't it?
Type B.
Yes.
And that was between the new proposed property and the existing 10-acre parcel to the
Right.
To the
north of it. Right. Okay.
And it's also, if I may, you're proposing paving the road up to those 10-acre parcels where
Yes.
that begins.
I believe they stipulated that on the plans, but if certainly if that needs to happen, that road's got to be cleaned up.
And that would help with the condition of the people getting back there.
Accessing their own properties.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Provide better access, that's the best way to say it.
and so that pavement would extend up to the end of this proposed development and terminate at the first property, I guess. Is that
Yes.
a correct understanding?
So it would go all the way from 168 to the first.
Parcel.
To the end of the first lot.
Right. Lot 1 in this case.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
One point of clarification, 100-year storms have a variety of precipitation amounts depending on how long the rain event lasts, just so that everybody knows. A 24-hour 100-year storm would be 9.5 inches of rain in 24 hours. So when they go to design it, the engineer will need to know 100-year storm and what kind of capacity. Normally we use the 24-hour rain event as the threshold on our 10-year. So just wanted to put that out there. So if you do put that in a motion, I would specify 9.5 inch rain event in 24 hours.
Okay, was there anything else that you needed to add about the conditions or you were concerned about? Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Old? Okay, thank you very much, sir.
One question to the county manager. So he said the difference for the 100-year storm. I know originally the first one was the 10. So he does. If somebody makes the motion for or whatever, they have to specify
In the conditions.
It would be helpful, I think, for whoever the design professional is on the backside of for the construction drawings, in my opinion. And like I said, it goes from for a 10-year, it's roughly, we call it 6, but it's 5 3/4, and it's 9.49 for a 100-year storm. So that's why I said 9.5.
Have these lots been preliminarily checked for septic?
Yes. Outlaw Regional.
that was brought up.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure.
And this. How many lots was it? Was it 38? 37? Okay, well, barring any more discussion, then I guess we're at a point of someone making a motion, either for or against this, based on the evidence presented at the prior hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion for approval. And the application complies with the applicable review standards of the UDO, provided the following items are addressed: an assessment of the existing drainage, storm events, and the tidal influences shall be evaluated at the construction drawing process to ensure adverse impacts are mitigated. That's land use plan and NH1. B, a detailed stormwater evaluation of the existing drainage patterns shall be provided at the construction drawing process to ensure the existing drainage patterns will not be negatively impacted by the new drainage system designed for this subdivision. A 25-foot vegetative buffer comprised of new or existing trees and shrubs that provides a type B screen. It says opaque here, but type B is not opaque, is it, Donna?
So item C is a required streetscape buffer. So that's already required by the ordinance.
All right.
Add E for
Okay.
type B.
Provides an opaque screen of the development to a height of 10 feet or more as seen from major arterial streets within 1,000 feet of the development. Provide the documentation that will ensure the installation and maintenance of the required streetscape that meets the minimum requirements of the UDO. D, no parking signs shall be placed along the street at intersections and the entrance, approximately 4 to 5 signs. E, the type B buffer be established on the northern property line to separate this subdivision from the 10-acre lot subdivision. And F, that a 100-year flood event or storm event be used with 9.5 inches of rainfall in 24 hours. I move to approve this with the TRC conditions of approval because the applicant has demonstrated the proposed use meets the use permit review standards of the UDO. Use permit review standards worksheet. 1, the use will not endanger the public safety or health by constructing a water main extension to serve the proposed lots with domestic water supply. installing fire protection methods such as fire hydrants and proper access for emergency vehicles to adjacent lots that currently do not have such amenities, managing stormwater runoff per the Currituck Stormwater Manual and/or state stormwater requirements to provide management of stormwater runoff, flooding, and quality. Laying out proposed lot lines to best suit the on-site wastewater evaluations provided by the Albemarle Regional Health Services. Each lot will require an on-site wastewater improvement permit prior to construction commencement and obtaining review and approval of necessary NCDOT permits such as right-of-way encroachment agreements and street and driveway access permits. Since NCDOT will have an opportunity to review the subdivision, the owner will have the chance to address any safety or health concerns they may have. 2, the use will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the area in which it's located. The adjacent and abutting lands consist mostly of single-family residence and residential subdivision of same characteristics as the proposed residential subdivision. The proposed lots are similar in size to the adjacent subdivision and residential lots. Proposing a subdivision of such similar nature as adjacent lands and development will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. 3, the use will be in conformity with the land use plan and other officially adopted plans. The 2006 land use plan classifies this site as rural and conservation land use classifications in the Moyock sub-area. The area intended for residential lots is predominantly in the rural land use classification. The rural and conservation areas contemplate a residential density of 1 unit per 3 acres. The policy emphasis for Moyock sub-area indicates residential development densities shall be limited to 1 to 3 units per acre in areas where on-site wastewater is proposed and other county services may be limited. The proposed use is in keeping with the policies of the plans, some of which are Policy ES2, non-coastal wetlands, including freshwater swamps and inland non-tidal wetlands, shall be conserved for the important role they play in absorbing floodwaters, filtering pollutants from stormwater runoff, recharging the groundwater table, and providing critical habitat for many plant and animal species. Currituck County supports the efforts of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in protecting such wetlands through the Section 4042 permit program of the Clean Water Act, as well as Section 4013 water quality certifications by the state of North Carolina. Policy ES3. Coastal wetlands shall be conserved for the valuable functions they perform in protecting water quality and in providing critical habitat for the propagation and survival of important plant and animal species. Camel use standards and policies for coastal wetlands shall be supported. Uses approved for location in a coastal wetland must be water dependent, i.e. water utility easements, bridges, docks, and piers, and be developed so as to minimize adverse impacts. Policy WQ5, development that preserves the natural features of the site, including existing topography and significant existing vegetation, shall be encouraged. If coastal and non-coastal wetlands are considered part of a lot's acreage for the purpose of determining minimum lot size or development density, low-impact development techniques or appropriate buffers shall be integrated into the development. Open space development shall be encouraged to reduce the impervious surface areas associated with new development and redevelopment. Policy ES8. Areas of the county identified for significant future growth shall avoid natural heritage areas. Great examples like Great Marsh on Knott's Island, Currituck Banks, Swan Island Natural Area, Currituck Banks, Corolla Natural Area, Pine Island Currituck Club Natural Area, Northwest River Marsh Game Land, and other marsh areas on the mainland. The Moyock Small Area Plan, an officially adopted plan, classifies the site as rural and conservation on the future land use map. The rural designation provided for low density at less than 1 unit per acre. The property is near an industrial activity center, and the proposed and development density is 0.37 units per acre. The proposed use is in keeping with the following policy in the Moyock Small Area Plan. FLU 1, promote compatibility between new development and existing development to avoid adverse impacts to the existing community. This is achieved through design and includes larger setbacks, landscaped or forested strips, transition zones, fencing, screening, density, and or bulk step downs or other architectural and site plan measures that encourage harmony. 4, the use will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities. The proposed subdivision contains 37 residential lots. The projected daily project water demand is 29,600 gallons per day. Public water is available for this development, and capacity is reserved through August 16, 2020. Based on the student generation rate study prepared by Tischler and Associates Incorporated in 2004, the proposed subdivision will generate the following students: 9 elementary school students, 3 middle school students, and 5 high school students. According to the Currituck County Schools, the proposed subdivision is located in the following school districts: Shawboro Elementary, 87% of the 2019-21 actual capacity is based on the January 2020 ADM. 90% of the 2021-2022 actual capacity based on the January 2020 ADM. Moyock Middle School, 94% of the 2019 through 2021 actual capacity based on the January 2020 ADM, and Currituck County High School, 84%, the 2019 to 2021 actual capacity based on the January 2020 ADM. That's my motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion from the board before I call for vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No. All right, 3 to 4, 4 against, 3-4. So we have Commissioner Etheridge. Did you get the ayes?
The nays were Commissioner Etheridge, Commissioner the ayes, I'm sorry.
The ayes were Owen, Kevin, and Mike.
Thank you.
All right, that motion failed. Is there another motion on the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I move for disapproval of PD 1924 New Bridge Street Estates. Because the applicant has not demonstrated that proposed use meets the use permit review standards of the UDO. Specifically, the use will increase the value of adjoining or abutting lands and will be, let me rephrase that. In the absence of testimony that it will not injure the property, besides not enough evidence was provided that the neighboring properties would not be injured by the development.
Thank you.
That.
All right. You clear on that? Everybody clear on that motion? Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor?
I got a question before that.
Oh.
The fact that he's paving a road that now is a dirt road to the adjoining property owners, and water will be run to their property where they can now hook onto the county water system, which the lady that spoke said that was very important to her. And the fact that the road was being paved, she supported the subdivision coming forth. So that has no bearing on it not injuring property.
This is an issue that this county, that this board has dealt with for many years now, and that's making sure that the legal precedent or that the expert witness, that's why you had an attorney here. And that was one of the feedback items that the applicants are supposed to understand, that they have to provide credible legal capability, expert witnesses to testify to that effect. And in the absence of that, it doesn't exist. And I'm not debating that it could have been easy to accomplish, but the reality is he failed to meet that burden.
Okay, so we had 4 ayes for Commissioner Beaumont's motion. Any against?
Nay.
So we had 3 noes. Okay. Moving on. The next agenda item this evening is new business. Item A, consideration of a resolution authorizing exchange of county property for property owned by Jeffrey G. Brodel.
Mr. Chairman, this resolution is before you to authorize the exchange of property between Jeffrey Brodel and the county. It involves a piece of county land, 1 acre in size, on Grandy Road near the intersection with Uncle Graham Road. It's the former convenience center site. The county, I don't believe, has used that 1 acre parcel of land for anything for a long time. Mr. Brodel's property is 17 acres, which wraps around the county property and extends to the north from the county property. Part of the reason for this exchange in Mr. Brodel's request is because of an unimproved access that I understand has been described as low or wet to access his property. And traditionally, his access, or the access to the property, has actually been an existing path as shown on the plat at page 81 of your agenda package, which is actually across the county's 1 acre lot. What this proposed exchange would do is to give Mr. Brodel 0.219 acres of the county property in exchange for 0.426 acres of his property, shifting the lot line so that bottom line is that his traditional access route across the existing path shown on the plat would now become his property. Staff supports and recommends approval of this resolution. The appropriate statutory notice has previously been given prior to your consideration of the resolution authorizing the exchange.
Questions, comments, concerns? So we went from 1 acre to 1.21 acres, basically, if this passes for our property. Pick up 2/10 of an acre.
With the 2/10 of an acre we're picking up, is it south?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought.
That's an old store out there, correct?
It's an old.
There's an old building there or something?
Certainly not on the county's property, as that was a convenience center site at one time.
All right, you good?
Yeah, no, it's just a small building.
Okay. Well, this is down in your district. Would you like to make a motion?
Was there any other questions?
I'm assuming we don't need a whole lot of discussion on this. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, no.
Just move to approve.
Yeah. We're done with the questions?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm making a motion for approval.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. B. Item B, consideration and possible action to adopt a strategic plan for Currituck County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I walk through this, basically, this is a document that you all worked to craft over a 2-day work session back in October. I'm going to hit just briefly how the process went and then go through the goals that were the end result of this. This document, while fairly short in length, is got a lot of depth to it and how it can govern the way that Currituck County views itself, and the elected officials specifically view the future of Currituck County. So basically, we took significant history and assets, we looked at strengths, weaknesses, and trends, current realities and visions, and then we boiled those down into goals. And these were the goals that were the top priorities for the board in the different areas. So we took the county and we split it up. We have a whole county goals, and then we have goals that hit different geographic areas in our county due to the, obviously wide range of cultures and population and people that we have that reside in our county. So Currituck County overall goals: pursue a unified county government and maintain a community feel while managing business and residential growth. Knott's Island and Gibbs Woods increase county involvement and access and maintain current culture and identity. For Moyock, promote business and commercial development and manage and control residential growth. For Central Currituck and the Shawboro region, promote agricultural and rural preservation. For Central Currituck, Soundside, promote a diversified workforce and opportunities for young professionals, and promote hotel, motel, and restaurant development. For Southern Currituck, promote business and commercial development and create a recreational zone for hotels, motels, and vacation amenities. For Corolla, plan for a year-round resident and businesses, and refine the plan for the Mid-Currituck Bridge terminus. For the off-road area, control the rate of development to preserve the character and improve the roads. And that basically sums up the goals that you all, as the elected body, came out of that 2-day work session with. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but really it's a document that is forged through the hard work and vision that you all as our elected officials have.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Are you going to have this on the county website for people to?
I will. I'll get it up in the next couple of days. We'll put it out through social media with Randall and let folks know what's going on with it, and be happy to answer any questions from a staff level that folks may have. Like I said, we're going to put together action plans under each of these as the staff. We've already worked on some of them. We'll continue to do so.
Okay. Then I guess what's left is to move for approval.
So moved.
Well, I made a motion to move to approve, so.
Oh, I thought you said, I'm looking for a motion.
So, I'm going to make a motion, daggone it. Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. It's getting late. C, purchasing and contract policy updates. So we have Miss Rebecca back there.
You know how to control it up there? You want me to do it back here?
If that don't work, you can always use the clapper.
Ben.
What did you
Then
do?
you turned it off. Well, meeting's adjourned.
Quit pressing buttons.
All in favor?
Aye. Oh, man. Oh, we're going backwards. Oh, okay.
Okay, I've got it back now.
Okay. I'll try not to mess it up. All right. We'll see how this goes. Good evening. All right. I am Rebecca Gay. I'm the contract purchasing agent, and I am here tonight to present an update to our purchasing and contracting policy.
Hold on. Wait a second. I figured out what's going on. Sorry.
Operator error.
Well, no, because you're moving the mouse on my screen, not on your screen. Now, if you just click, hopefully it'll work.
Okay. All right, so this is an update to the policy that the board adopted in May of 2019, and it provides for the application of all North Carolina general statute provisions pertaining to local government purchasing and contracting, as well as procurement requirements involving the use of federal funds. In the document, you'll see it doesn't include any procedural guidelines. We've separated those out of the document, and they'll be available to staff through an administrative manual. But these are some highlights that you'll see on your screen for the purpose of the document.
ultimately, we want to ensure that we are fiscally responsible and that we are obtaining the best value for our citizens' tax dollars. So the policy is divided into 9 sections. The update brings each of these concepts into one policy document. And the only entirely new portion of the document is Section 7, which is pre-qualification of contractors for construction and repair work.
Can I ask a quick question
Sure.
on Section 3?
Yes, sir.
Are they going to have to show evidence where they have outreached or tried to contact hub contractors? Is that in, that's the doc, okay.
Yeah. We'll touch on that in just a minute.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So Section 1 provides an overview of the purpose, authorities, and references, and then provides a policy for conflicts of interest and gifts and favors. Section 2 describes methods of procurement. So there are essentially 4 procurement categories. The first is purchase of apparatus, supplies, materials, and equipment. The second is construction and repair work. The third is professional services, which includes architectural and engineering services, surveying services, and alternative construction delivery methods. And then the final category is services. So statute requires that local governments competitively bid purchase contracts and construction and repair contracts. And there are 2 thresholds. First is informal bidding and then formal bidding. The threshold for informal bidding is $30,000, and the threshold for formal bidding for purchase contracts is $90,000, and for construction and repair work is $500,000. Professional services contracts are procured through a qualifications-based selection. So cost is not a consideration in the initial selection. And then service contracts are not subject to competitive bidding requirements under statute. So when we refer to a service contract, we are typically describing like a pest control contract or a generator maintenance agreement. All right, so this slide provides a summary of procurement methods. At the top row, you'll see the 4 categories, and then to the far left column, you'll see the different dollar thresholds. If you look under purchase and construction and repair contracts, you'll see the informal and formal bidding thresholds. And then local governments are able to impose greater requirements than those that are prescribed in general statute. And in this case, we have chosen to do that in 3 of the categories. So purchase and construction and repair contracts in the $5,000 to $30,000 range, we will require a request for quotes process. And then service contracts that are a value greater than $90,000, we will require a competitive proposal process, which is essentially a best value procurement. So cost is not the only consideration. Do you have any questions on that before we move forward? Okay. All right, so Section 3 of the policy addresses historically underutilized or hub participation, or excuse me, historically underutilized businesses or hub participation. So this is a definition of a historically underutilized business. Statute requires that units of local government employ measures designed to promote the participation of minority businesses in construction and repair projects. Generally, these measures fall into 3 categories. So there's establishing goals, or setting goals for hub participation, engaging in good faith efforts, and then reporting hub participation. And the statute also requires that the county adopt a minority business outreach plan. So initially, the board adopted, or we'll go back to the board adopted a resolution in 1990 that addressed minority business participation. There's actually an update to that resolution that's next on the agenda, where we'll look at some changes that General Assembly made, and we'll update our resolution to reflect those changes.
So, quick question.
Sure.
Because this definition of hub is, of course, different than what the federal definition of hub is, and that's fine. But in looking at this and in the minority documentation that follows, a couple of the categories that we're not addressing that federally has been accepted. I mean, unless you're going to tell me they fit in here somewhere. Women-owned business is not reflected in this. Neither is veteran-owned and/or service-disabled veteran-owned, which are, I think that's it, right?
Yeah, for the federal government.
That's
Yeah.
8A, which would be minority.
Yes. Then you got the service disabled and
So
veteran-owned.
veteran-owned and service-disabled veteran. I would like to see that somehow.
So, minority person as defined by statute is Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian, female, or disabled.
There you go, Mike, you're in there.
Okay, define disability, disabled.
I have to go back and look at that for you.
Because I'm just telling you, there's a threshold, and that may not, and that doesn't capture veteran-owned as well. And you know, I've done a lot of federal contracting, and I would imagine it's even worse on a state and/or a community level. Consistently, the number one group that is under-tapped, that does not get the benefit is service-disabled, veteran-owned, small. They are by far the worst impacted, even though the goals that are set up. Then the other thing that I don't see in either this or in the other group is size standard, unless I missed it. Because
So it includes, so there's the definition for minority person, and then the definition for socially or economically disadvantaged, and that's based on the federal definition.
okay, but that's
I'm
not
not sure
the
if that
organization.
includes-
You're talking about an individual. I'm talking about an organization, right? And size standards are huge, right? So I don't see where we applied size standards on any of the criteria as well.
You know
For
about
example,
with the SBA
you could have a
size standard?
$200 billion company that's owned by an Alaskan native that, according to this, could roll in and bid as a historically underutilized category. And I think we would argue that's not the intent of this. You know, the intent is to help out those that are, you know, smaller organizations, smaller businesses. Qualified, right? They still have to be qualified.
Yes. There's no mandate or quota, no set aside that's based on this policy. It's really just to make sure that we are reaching everyone within the population and providing them with an opportunity to bid on projects.
Okay, well, I personally would like to see veterans and/or service-disabled veterans included in historically underutilized businesses, because that's acknowledged nationally, so.
Well, and plus we established the veterans in the county.
We have a Veterans Advisory Board.
And I get those emails about emails about looking for hiring or jobs.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Just one question for clarification, if I could, Commissioner Beaumont. So you said veteran-owned businesses or service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, but if you just said veteran-owned businesses, would it cover both?
No.
Yeah. Veteran-owned, service-disabled is a completely different category. So that's an extra. Not only they are a veteran, but they have service.
Yeah, right.
Ability.
Yeah, but
right.
we don't award points when we judge bidders based on if they fall into those categories. So, I mean, if you fall into one category or you fall into 4 categories, that wouldn't matter.
Okay, so you're suggesting that veteran would. I'm just saying outreach to service-disabled veterans is as important as outreach to veterans.
And I guess the point I'm trying to make is for the purpose of this, the outreach would hit both. I mean, there's a Venn diagram of it hits the middle of the Venn diagram. I don't know a better way to explain it.
Hits it both ways.
Yeah, I mean, if you say veteran, I think it hits both. Now we can call it out specifically, but you will still be
to those that it matters to.
Okay,
it matters.
Okay.
And I know what you're getting at. A disabled veteran is a veteran.
Right.
So if we're reaching out to veterans, but and I guess on the federal level, there could be set aside strictly for service.
You get
disabled.
credit. You actually
Yes,
get credit on a federal competition.
But the state,
both
you
as a
don't.
veteran and as a service disabled. And
Yes,
I
sir.
understand that's not what they're getting here.
So as long as.
But if we're reaching out, we might as well
Yeah.
reach out.
So we can specifically,
Let me ask a question.
uh-huh.
How do you reach out to them? Do you put it in the advertisement or request?
Well, I'll go
You
into
can
this
go
a little bit, and then you jump in here.
You can go to the state website and go to their hub section, and you can find contractors that are certified in the state of North Carolina, and you can find heating and air, plumbers, whatever, and you can send them a link to bid, and then you can show that document, hey, I reached out, I sent them an email, they'd like to bid on it. So there's ways to find out who is set up in the state.
I have seen major projects where a contractor will actually have a consultant who will hold, advertised meetings saying, if you are a historically underutilized business, not just minority, but it hits all these things that we've talked about, come and find out about this project because we're interested in having you put it on a bid. So like if it was a jail in this case, it might be the guy who does the heating and air work, or it might be somebody who does the flooring.
And just so you know, I am registered as a hub contractor. I get emails from all over the state from contractors to go to work for them because they're trying to reach contractors. Yeah.
So, but
this is policies that are in place statewide and federally, and it.
So it's no problem to add veteran and service disabled veteran. As far as the size requirement, we don't. We don't award points.
I think it's just to let because our demographics, we have a lot of military, and just to see that, that we care.
Okay. The Veteran Advisory Board, if I can bring this back to the Veteran Advisory Board.
With that language in there, it just goes, yes.
Because they are doing significant outreaches towards veteran businesses, and this would just show that we.
Yeah, it just shows the county's, right. I would agree. Just put that language in it and hurt anything.
All right. So I would leave this up. Section 4 of the policy applies specifically to procurement with federal funds. So this is the procurement of purchases, services, and construction and repair work. And the requirements are codified in 2 CFR Part 200, which is commonly referred to as the uniform guidance. It's particularly important that we make sure that we're compliant with those requirements. As a county that receives a lot of FEMA disaster recovery reimbursement, we want to make sure that we are compliant with those federal grant awards. Section 5 of the policy describes contract administration, which is essentially contract award and execution authorities. Section 6 provides a brief overview of our 2 card programs, which are purchasing card program and then our fuel card program for county vehicles. And then Section 7, as I touched on, is the only entirely new section, and this provides a pre-qualification process for contractors for construction and repair work. So North Carolina law allows us to follow this process if the board formally adopts a pre-qualification process. This is not a process that we've used before because it was not adopted by the board. So there'll be an addition. Additionally, there'll be a resolution supporting this policy for the adoption of a pre-qualification process. Take the factors that are generally considered in the responsibility determination. So when you hear us say that a contract was awarded to the lowest responsible bidder, these criteria that you have before you make up that responsibility determination. So we'll ask contractors to submit an application that we provide to them that shows us that they meet these criteria, and then we'll have a committee who evaluates those applications and makes the determination if the contractor is eligible to bid. So it sort of divides the process out in 2 steps, and then we can award the contract after the bids. All right, and then Section 8 of the policy discusses capital assets, which is property with a value over $5,000. And then the final section is the sale and disposition of surplus property, which essentially describes our authorities
under general statute for the sale and disposition of surplus property. So that was brief. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval with the addition of the language specifically for veteran-owned and service-disabled veteran-owned language, please.
Thank you. Second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, it carries unanimously. Item D, consideration of a resolution updating requirements for the award of the public building and repair construction contracts and adopting a minority business participation outreach plan pursuant to NC General Stat 143-128.2. You're still here.
I'm still here. Okay. So this is the resolution I referred to a moment ago. So, like I said, back in 1990, the board adopted a resolution, and they adopted a 10% participation goal for minority business participation in building construction and repair contracts, and then also adopted good faith efforts. Since then, the General Assembly has updated the statute, and we need to update our resolution based on that. So the resolution before you is updating the permissible methods that we may use for construction contracts. The initial resolution was just for separate prime and single prime contracts. It updates the threshold requiring good faith efforts from $100,000 to $300,000, and then recognizes the county's effort or the county's requirement of good faith efforts, and then also our requirement for contractors for good faith efforts. And then it formally adopts the minority business participation plan, which is in section 3 of the purchasing policy.
Okay. Questions?
Move for adoption.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. All right, next item up tonight is item E, consideration of a resolution adopting pre-qualification policy for construction and repair pursuant. Sounded a lot like the other one.
Third time's the charm.
All right. For construction repair work pursuant to NC General Statute 143-135.8.
Yes. So again, this is supporting the purchasing and contracting policy, and is the formal adoption of a pre-qualification process for contractors for construction and repair work.
I move for approval.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item F, consideration of a resolution authorizing the sole source purchase of computer hardware and software from Instrulogic LLC for the operation of Mainland Water and Southern Outer Banks water systems. Back again.
Yep, still here. All right. Again, this is a sole source procurement for our water systems, and it's for computer hardware and software that's available through Instrulogic, which is the current provider for the system, and as for standardization and compatibility considerations, we're asking for sole source procurement for these items.
Any questions?
Make a motion to approve it.
Thank you. I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item, G, budget amendment for the CARES Act. Mr. Steichleather.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I pulled this out separate from the consent agenda just for a brief explanation. The state of North Carolina has sent CARES Act funding in 2 phases. What you have in front of you now is the first phase. They gave us all of about maybe a week to 3 weeks to put together some kind of plan on how to spend it. So what you see before you is basically the bulk of the money is going to be used to cover the cost of salaries and benefits for public safety employees, which offsets some costs that we have. There is going to be a small amount that's in contracted services for nonprofits that come and might make some request. You have that. We are going to be getting another influx of money, and so the board might want to consider. We have a longer period of time to spend that, so the board might want to consider. Do you want to do something different with those funds? It's somewhere around $500,000. So, once again, for us, the most efficient way to use it is to offset cost They're just generally incurred by the county. For public safety, they've allowed us to cover any public safety salary because they are, by default, involved in COVID response in some form or fashion. So, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that folks may have about that.
So, what was the total dollar amount was $701,700?
That's the first pot of money. So then we should be getting another, we are getting, and we need to figure out how to use the $500,000 that is going to come in the second phase.
That includes any public safety person?
Mm-hmm.
I think that includes that the county
employees.
Okay.
Like where we had to do all the bridge cover.
Right.
It covers all of that. EMS. It can cover 911 communications. Anything. It can cover Mary Beth's time. I think, yeah. So it can cover all of those positions. It won't be a problem to spend the money.
Never is.
We're grateful to have it. Like I said, we're kind of in an interesting position because the state came out and said recently that you have to share 25% of your. So all counties in North Carolina got this money. They came out with the General Assembly came out with a rule that said you have to share 25% of it with municipalities in your jurisdiction. So we're going to share it back to ourselves.
The one time that
it's a benefit not to have a municipality. Yeah.
Okay.
So like I said, I just wanted to call it out because it's a big pot of money and it's very different. This is my recommendation on how to use this first shot of money. If the board wants to have some discussions on how to use the second amount, we have a plan we have to submit to the state, but the plans can be modified at any time, basically. But we do have a very quick turnaround on this money and needed to recognize it in this budget year and set up a separate fund because you have to track all the money that goes into that fund. There's a lot of strings and reporting and stuff.
Chairman, I move for approval.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
All right. Next item, Lower Currituck Volunteer Fire Department, use of equipment replacement fund for fiberglass tank replacement.
Mr. Chairman, the water tanker in Lower Currituck, the tank itself has had structural failures on the internal. It's suspected that the baffles have failed. And, Mr. Chairman, that tank needs to be replaced. The chassis remains the same. And I believe it's using existing money.
It's using money from the equipment replacement fund for
Correct.
fire
So-
department apparatus.
Okay.
We'd be using to spend that.
It's
It's essential.
Yep. Okay.
I'll move for approval.
Thank you. A second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Item I, consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Item J, lifeguard contract extension. Commissioner Beaumont.
Chairman, I had a conversation with Michael Cherry, and the actual the cause for the phone call was concern for, with the returning of schools, how many of the lifeguards that we were losing to go back. Dovetail that with, by every indication, everywhere that I've been able to talk, our season has greatly expanded through the month of September and well into, if not past and beyond October and into November. With that said, the question was, could we extend lifeguard services because we're going to have full beaches for the foreseeable future? To which he said yes, but he asked that, he had mentioned providing a estimate for approximately $15,000 to keep 3 additional lifeguard stands. We kind of go in a little bit of a throttle down, but we would be keeping an additional 3 stands, a total of 6.
From Labor Day to Columbus Day. I don't know the date off the top of my head.
So an additional 3 stands. And Mr. Commissioner.
So in this case, would we be asking for a budget amendment?
That we would come forth with a budget amendment. I talked to the county manager. We would be requesting it would come in as a budget amendment, but he needs to know if we're leaning towards doing this, if we would approve this, because he literally has kids packing up today to go home if this does not get
Okay.
get passed.
So you just need a feel from the board, or you need a motion to?
Well, if you all make a motion and vote to give him the go-ahead, then we can put the budget amendment through at the next meeting.
And I so move that, Mr.
Thank you. I'll second it. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, with that, I will recess the regular Board of Commissioners meeting and move to go into closed session pursuant to GS 143-318.11A6 to discuss personnel matters.
Oh, my God.
9 o'clock, not too bad. Good night, Donna.
Donna, thank you.
All right.
All right.
Are we in closed session?
We are. We just got to
Well, we're
kick
just
everybody
waiting
out.
for